The new Premier League season kicks off this weekend, and as usual, expect to find plenty of drama at the bottom as well as at the top. With me to talk over the relegation battle are sports reporters Nick Howson and Tony Mogan. Guys, we'll start off with the three promoted clubs, Leicester, Burnley and QPR. Which of those are best equipped to deal with life in the top flight?
Well, despite the fact they edged into the Premier League with a last-minute goal in the playoff final, I think QPR are the best set of the promoted three to stay afloat this season. I mean, Harry Redknapp, they've got someone who's experienced at both ends of the Premier League in the top flight, and he's got a wealth of experience. I think they've streamlined the squad ahead of the new season as well. They've brought in one or two, I think, excellent players who played in the Premier League last season. So I think they're the best equipped. I think after that it's Leicester. I'd say that probably for two reasons. I think in Nigel Pearson, they've got a superb manager who's really sort of destined to remain in the Premier League, whether Leicester do or not. And they've also got a financial backing there as well, where I think they can perhaps put out a few fires if there are any problems come sort of January, bring in one or two, maybe just sort of temporary deals, and try and see them through to a second season in the Premier League. I think after that it is Burnley, and I think they go into the season. Unfortunately, I think it's probably the weakest of the 20 clubs in the Premier League, simply because they've got very little Premier League experience there. In Sean Dyche, they've got a manager who has barely experienced at Championship level, let alone at in the top flight. And obviously, he's got none of that. So I think in that order, that's sort of the way they are. I think QPR are very well set for the new season, because I think they've got a proper squad there that can do something, finish lower mid-table. The other two, I think, have got a season of problems at the bottom awaiting them.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that pecking order, I suppose. The significance of Premier League experience, it's just you need to have it if you want to play in the division. In Burnley, Sean Dyche did wonderful things there last season. I think he worked with a squad of 23 for the entire campaign and won promotion, which is a marvellous achievement in itself. And before the summer, he addressed the need to bring in players not only to strengthen the core of the squad, but to replace the ones who left the club over the course of the summer months. I don't think they've done that sufficiently yet. They've brought in Stephen Reid and Matthew Taylor in, which doesn't, yes, Premier League experience, but Premier League quality, I'm not sure. And that is an absolute necessity if you want to have any chance of staying in this division.
One or two players they've brought in Lukas Lukovic from Middlesbrough. I'm not really convinced he's the man. Marvin Sordell as well has come in, and his career has somewhat been derailed since he left Watford. It's not really happened for him in the Championship, so I'm not really convinced that that's sufficient quality. In Kieran Trippier, I think they've got, if you had to name a Burnley player of the year at the start of the year, I mean, you do well to find someone other than him. He'll provide good thrust from right back and plenty of assists as well. I think Burnley also put up a fight, but there's a wafer thing, as you mentioned, a wafer thing squad there, and one that doesn't have a great deal of quality to it either.
Along with the optimism then of these Premier League newbies, you'll have a lot of nervous Premier League chairmen right now after a couple of sides, West Bromwich Albion, Sunderland, survived by the skin of their teeth, and some really big English clubs, Aston Villa, Newcastle, floundered last year. Which of those do you think are going to really struggle to survive this time around? Well,
I think where the decibels are loudest of the alarm is at Aston Villa. I think it's a club really not going anywhere, and Randy Lerner, the owner, wants to sell. I can't anticipate a great deal of investment there in terms of the rest of the window. In a club that plateaued two seasons of consecutive 15th place finishes. They'll start the season without their best player, and they ended it, of course, last year without their best player in Christian Benteke. It's a squad that's not been supplemented by Premier League misfits, I think is probably the kindest description I can give. Philip Senderos, Joe Cole, Sissoko. It's really not the glittering array of stars that Aston Villa require. So I think there are problems all over the shop for Aston Villa. The only ray of light for them, as far as I'm concerned, is the youth system. Can they call upon some players to supplement that squad, where the transfer window hasn't been able to do that sufficiently, in my opinion, and to get them out of trouble?
Yeah, a quick look around the clubs who finished there or thereabouts to the foot of the table last season. Sunderland, West Brom, Hull City. To a certain extent, they've got their houses in order this summer. They've brought in personnel. They'll struggle to maybe vastly improve on what they did last season, but they seem to have the adequate resources to put up a fight. These things can't be said at all for Aston Villa. Just the chasm in the way the clubs have operated suggests that one club is already preparing for the worst, that they're prepared to go down and regroup maybe, while other clubs, as mentioned, West Brom, Sunderland, they've shown initiative to strengthen and an initiative to reinforce that Premier League status and say we deserve to be here. We have the players and we have the ambition to remain in this league. It's been absolutely devoid of that at Villa Park, and the presence of Roy Keane will only act as a further destabiliser, I'd say, for the club. If things go wrong for Lambert, I can't imagine it being a rosy scenario when there's an assistant manager who's notorious. He'd been looking for jobs this summer. He's still Republic of Ireland's assistant manager. He was very close to joining Celtic, so his initiative, his desire to get back into management is there. I can't see that working at all this season.
I think there are 3 other clubs to really concentrate on still in the Premier League, along with those promoted 3. Sunderland, despite the fact that they produced some stunning performances against some of the top 4 or some of the bigger clubs at the back end of the season, getting points off, beating Chelsea, ending Jose Mourinho's unbeaten home record at Stamford Bridge, getting something at Manchester City, beating Manchester United. Despite that, they haven't been able to retain the 3 players who are most influential to that. Ki Sun-yeon has gone. Doesn't appear to be returning on loan. Marcos Alonso has yet to re-sign with Sunderland, and Fabio Borini, too. So without those 3, you really fear for Sunderland as well. West Brom is another one for me, although I think most of the concerns with them centres around Alan Irvine as the new manager with no Premier League experience at all. I also worry about where the goals are coming from. Brown Adie has come in, how that's going to work out as a record signing, how that's going to work out is yet to be seen, and the other goal options are really threadbare, frankly. They've reinforced that defence with 1 or 2 good additions, I think. Christian Gamboa, Andre Wisdom on loan. So there's some, the foundations there. It's not going to be many goals in that West Brom team, and I wonder if Irvine's going to keep that very solid, like he's learned in his managerial career thus far. Likes to keep things solid, likes to be organised. That's all what West Brom are going to be around, and whether that's going to be enough to stay up is still to be seen. I think the final team to look at in terms of real worries would be Swansea. I think that really centres around the fact that they've lost 2 very important players in Michel Vorm and Ben Davis. Mishu's not going to be playing this season. He's gone on loan to Napoli. And they seemingly have an intent to get rid of or offload Wilfred Bonney. I'm not sure where that's really coming from, why they'd want to do that. I think without him, Swansea are proper relegation candidates under Gary Monk. With him, I think he's genuinely the differce. I think what they've brought in to attempt to replace Bonney, which I think has probably stirred a lot of the rumours around his future. Marvin Emnes, who was there last season and wasn't particularly impressive. And Bafétimbi Gomez, who has got a good wage packet out of that move to the Liberty Stadium that he tried to get at the likes of Newcastle United. So those 4 of the current Premier League are the ones I forget. Teams like Newcastle you touched upon, I think will be okay as well. Hull City, albeit with the Europa League, conflicting their schedule. I think they'll be fine. I think it's really sort of 3 from those 7 in my opinion.
I think the teams such as Crystal Palace and West Ham United, they'll find their spot at the second half of the table, positions 11, 12, 13, easy way to explain that. And their positions will be solidified. There's too much quality compared to the teams at the foot of the table there. There may be concerns during the early stage of the seasons come Christmas time, but the sheer difference in quality these teams such as Crystal Palace and West Ham have compared to the likes of Aston Villa and Burnley will just be there to see at the end of the season. And also these teams have the ability to operate in January should they get in trouble. Can the other teams do that? Can they do that with any real initiative or clue maybe? Based on previous experience from Aston Villa, no. So
So if you had to make final predictions for the 3 teams you think are going to go down this year?
I think Burnley, so of the weakest of the 20 clubs coming in at the start of the season, so I think they will go. I think Aston Villa, I think there's no way out for Aston Villa, really. I don't think there's a scenario where I see them surviving, unless Martin O'Neill makes a return of an unlikely return of some description. And I think after that it's going to be a real scrap. I think it's genuine 1 from 3, really go down to the wire. And I think it's going to go. The axe is going to fall the way of Leicester City, I'm afraid. I think there's enough Premier League know-how at West Brom and enough at West Ham as well, just to see off the relegation again. But I think it will be Leicester's a swift return to the Championship, I'm afraid, for the Foxes.
Yeah, it's difficult to argue with that 3 now. The clubs we've mentioned, Sunderland, West Brom. They haven't strengthened sufficiently to change any perceptions we have about them going into the season, but there seems to be enough done there to ensure they'll be slightly better than the teams going down, which I believe will be Burnley, Aston Villa, and Leicester. Slightly better. They'll still be poor teams, but the difference in the way they've set up, how they've approached the setup of their squad this summer is marginally better. It's not great, it's marginally better.
Well, for all our Premier League coverage, go to our website, ivtimes.co.uk/sport.